How do you talk to your child if they ask you if they've ever had an orgasm or what an orgasm is? I'm here with JD, aka Jen Devine from superstarhealtheducation.com, and I'm Kathy Bartoli from theintimacydojo.com. And that's a great question. I mean, once you've had an orgasm, you kind of know what one is, and you know that you've had one, but before you've had one, you don't necessarily know.
Yeah. I mean, I always like to describe it for kids. When I say kids, I'm usually working with like 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, like puberty, pre-puberty type kids. But you could even describe it to a little kid. It's a super duper duper nice feeling that rushes through the body, and it usually starts in the genitals, but sometimes people have it other places too. So it's a super, super duper nice feeling.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always feel the same. Sometimes it's really intense, sometimes it's quieter.
Yeah. I mean, we know people can have orgasm in utero probably because we've seen erections in uteruses, we've seen muscles contracting on ultrasound. So we know it's like a thing that people can do even when they're very little too. And we see, little kids masturbating when they're not even really conscious that they're touching their genitals because it causes pleasure. So, yeah, orgasm. When I get to older kids and describe, like, what is it? I say, it's a series of muscles contracting and a release of chemicals in the brain that causes pleasure to happen in the body. And the neat thing is, they've done some studies where if you interview people of lots of different genders and they describe their orgasms, and then you remove all the words that would let you know what kind of body they have, like what gender they have.
Penis, vagina,
ejaculations, or whatever, like semen, name words that might relate to anatomy. The descriptions of orgasm are very, very similar.
Oh, that's interesting.
They actually it's very difficult to tell the difference between gender and how they describe the feelings of it.
That's amazing.
So physiologically, it's probably really similar for people in bodies. Yeah, so for kids, it's like a really cool feeling you get to have with yourself and sometimes other people.
And what if a child's worried or upset because they haven't, or maybe they're afraid they're broken because they can't have one?
People get to figure out how their own body works. I always encourage people to not be goal-oriented about that, and just to see what feels nice. And that's also true with partners later in life if people have partners, to not necessarily be moving toward a particular goal, but moving from one pleasurable experience to another. And sometimes a very surprising and wonderful height of feeling can happen. And it might or might not be an orgasm. It might also just be an emotional experience or some other physical pleasure that happens in the body. For adults, I know a lot of women talk about having challenges with having orgasms, and that's not uncommon, and that is perfectly normal. But knowing that a lot of times there's also something going on with the brain and how we think about things that can slow us down in our own bodies in response because of, like you said, shame or fear.
Or if I feel like I have to make my partner feel good or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So experimenting with one's own self to know how the body works, and also some people just don't have orgasms, and knowing that that's also totally normal and they can still have pleasure and sensation that feels good to them. So yeah,
that's great. Thank you. If you have thoughts or comments, please leave them below. I love that you're talking about this, and I love that if you're here watching this, it's normalizing it, and you'll have language to speak to your kids and to each other maybe about this, because sex is an amazing thing. Our bodies are amazing, and the more we can normalize how people respond and react, the safer we all feel being who we are. So
yeah, and we all want, we've spent a lot of time talking about kids, and I mean, I always hope that we want our kids to grow up to be healthy sexual adults, and that starts with healthy sexual adults around them, giving them good information. Yeah.
Thank you.